Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Super Bowl You Over Big Game edition of the Bill Gephardt Show podcast. Our topic, Utah-raised athletes from the ranks of college and high school football now shining in the NFL. And joining me to talk about this in just a minute is Gephardt Daily reporter and veteran sports writer Jared Page. A lot of you have been following his weekly in-depth stories on homegrown Utah athletes representing in the NFL. And straight ahead, he'll talk about former Beehive State players and coaches who will be duking it out on Super Bowl Sunday, February 12th, coming up. Gephardt Daily's big game coverage sponsors include these supporters of local sports journalism. Hillside Tire and Service, with their 5 locations since 1991. Hillside Tire has been your premier auto service center in the Salt Lake Valley, providing quality auto repairs and great deals on tires. Legacy Roofing. Find out why their 5-star fans call them Northern Utah's best residential roofing company. Need a tow? Always ask for Stoffers. Contact them online by searching Honest Utah Towing, Stoffers. The Brad DeBry Personal Injury Law Firm, with the name and experience their clients know and trust. ES Solar, rated by customers as the best solar contractor in the West. Let them show you how to save with solar power, the safe, clean energy of the future. Also, you didn't plan on a disaster, but you do have a choice as to who restores it. So choose the best. Tell your insurance provider you choose UDK, Utah Disaster Cleanup. There is no problem they can't handle. And All Utah Plumbing, Heating, and Air, where John Holland and his team don't only do plumbing and HVAC repairs and replacements, but also awesome remodels for kitchens and baths. Contact John Holland today. And now here he is, the man himself, the one and only Jared Page. Jared, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's great. Here's what I know about you, among other things. You've spent the entire season writing about former football athletes from both collegiate and high school ranks who have gone on to make names for themselves in the NFL, and we're watching them now, whether we know it or not, in Utah on TV. And you've written the columns, and the response to your columns has been terrific. Why is that?
I'm glad to hear it. I mean, this is, I really appreciate the opportunity to do it. This is actually a kind of an old school sports writer thing we did back when I was at the Standard Examiner. There was where we would follow the Utahns in the
Ogden,
NFL.
Utah Standard Examiner.
Ogden, Utah Standard Examiner back in the day. And it's been a lot of fun just all season to focus on the players who played both at the high school levels and at the colleges here that have gone on and have had some great pro careers. And there's quite a few of them. I mean, there's enough guys from Utah high schools and colleges to fill an entire NFL roster. So a lot of talented has come out of the programs here in Utah.
You know, the one thing I really like, you don't spend much time at all fooling around with scores. And I've always appreciated sports writers who, we already know the score, and you give us the color of the game.
Yeah. Well,
that's the color of the players.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the fun thing. I mean, anybody you can, especially in today's era, you can just look on your phone and get the scores from an app and get that quickly. And so what we're trying to show is with the social media interactions our local players are having, some of the things they're doing on social media, we can also provide them, highlights are showing on social media, post game, listening to their interviews, just to kind of to give
what are they doing?
More of a look.
I mean, where do you get your inspiration from? Some of the social media stuff? Where does that come from? What are they saying on social media?
So it's kind of funny because each week, you never know. There's enough Utah college and high school athletes in the NFL that every week somebody is going to have a big game. It's the way it worked out all year long, and so you just kind of let that happen. And then and sometimes there's like social media stories. People will be doing things off the field. Jamal Williams, a former running back at BYU and with the Detroit Lions now, set a touchdown record this year. He is very active in social media and just had a lot of fun this season. And so it was kind of fun to kind of bring that to the fans too. And so even when I talked about this as kind of being like an old newspaper idea with the rounding up the players, it's kind of a modern version of it where you're incorporating the Twitter and the social media and the post game interviews and those sorts of things as well.
Well, tell us some of these other guys that have played for not just University of Utah and BYU, but some of these other schools, the football schools in the state. San Francisco. There must, you talk about the number of players, but the number of teams is how many teams? 6 or 10 teams in the NFL. We have Utah representation.
So pretty much every team there. I think there are only like 3 teams that don't have a Utah player either on their practice squad or their active roster. But most teams have somebody there, and we do have and a lot of them are making impacts. For example, probably I would say the Fred Warner, who's a linebacker at BYU. He is now he's at the San Francisco 49ers and they had a nice run into the playoffs as well. But I would say he was probably the MVP of Utah pros this year. Had a great season. One of the top tacklers in the league. Is an all-pro. We mentioned Jamal Williams, another BYU guy, is running back. He went over 1,000 yards this year and broke Barry Sanders' touchdown rushing record this year. But pretty much all the schools are represented in the NFL. You mentioned Southern Utah University.
Yes.
Braxton Jones is an offensive lineman, played at Murray High School as well. He is a rookie, but played all 17 games as a rookie in the offensive line. And his offensive lineman, you can't really categorize statistically, but all feedback from the coaches is that he played the game at an elite level as a rookie. And so Braxton Jones is the guy to watch. And then, from my own Weber State, Taron Johnson is a cornerback with the Bills, has been doing a great job there. And then a young, exciting player with the New Orleans Saints, Rashid Shaheed. People remember him, the receiver and record-setting return man for the Wildcats, is also a fun, exciting guy to watch. So yeah, it's just been a lot of fun to see these guys. Guys we watched here, whether at the high school level or the college levels, now taking this on the big stage and making a career doing what they love doing.
I don't think every state can say this, can they? I mean, what is special about you? Is it the altitude? What is it?
Yeah, I don't know if everybody could, because I've never really looked at it as a state by state where they came from. But honestly, when I started this season and went through, I was surprised at how many players there were from Utah on these rosters. And I think it just speaks to the quality of the football programs. I mean, the majority of them are from the University of Utah or BYU, but Weber State also has 5 players, 4 on the active rosters, and Southern Utah has a couple of players on there. Utah State, Bobby Wagner is a perennial Pro Bowler from Utah State. They have several players there too. So, and then there are guys, Brighton High School, Bingham High School, Judge Memorial has a couple guys. There's high school programs too, Layton High School. A lot of high school athletes are able to go on and play sports for a living, and I think that's a lot of fun.
Who are you keeping an eye on? You can't keep an eye on all of. Well, you do. Obviously,
you do keep an eye on them, but guys that I really watch. So there's a guy, Sione Takitaki is a linebacker. He's a BYU guy too with the Browns. He got hurt last year, but he was having a great year. So he's a guy to watch that in the future. Another guy was a rookie from the University of Utah. Devin Lloyd is a linebacker. People were talking about him. He was his early in the season. They were talking about him as a possible defensive player of rookie of the year. He's still in that conversation, but he had a great season. So he's a guy that's got a good future to watch too. And then, and again, as I mentioned earlier, Rashid Shaheed, I think is a real fun guy from Weber State to watch.
Do you keep an eye on these guys before they get to the big show, to the NFL? I mean, are you looking at guys, are you telling your wife or your friends, in 2 years, keep an eye on so-and-so? Have you done that?
With somewhat, yeah. And that is kind of fun because it's like, Shaheed's one of those guys that I said, this guy's going to be returning kicks in the NFL. I swear he is. And he didn't get drafted. He went undrafted, but was signed to ended up signing to the Saints practice squad and just worked his way onto the roster. By the end of the year, he was one of their top receivers and they're returning all their kicks. So it's fun when you see guys that you you see a special talent on the field at the college or high school level, and you're like, I bet this guy's going to take it to the next level.
All right.
And then they do.
Let me put you on the spot, Jared.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you looking at now? Who are you looking at in either high school, especially high school? I guess that would be interesting to me. And what school? High school or college ranks that, as long as they're not injured, or never mind even thinking about injury, but who you think is going to go on?
And I'm really going to feel like I got to let you down here, but I honestly, I wouldn't, I haven't really been able to dive into the prep ranks like I've wanted to again. And I did cover, for years, I covered prep sports for
Sure.
the Standard Examiner. So I enjoy it. It's something I love, but I don't have a lot of my thumb on the pulse of that. I would like, is introducing this, the NFL coverage and covering these high school and college athletes. I would like to do more with the preps as we go forward here at Gephardt Daily and expand our prep coverage. And that is something that I would like to expand into. But
no reason why you can't. I mean, if it's interesting, it's interesting. Now I'm thinking about, and I'm prejudiced toward the schools that I know because I live in northern Utah, but I'm thinking about Bingham. Mm-hmm. And maybe I think of that because my kids wrestled. And I'm thinking of Bingham High School and some of these other high schools that are, I think, famous for athletes of some sort, especially football. Am I right?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, Bingham and Brighton both have multiple representatives in the NFL. And then, Judge Memorial also I mentioned too, although they have two guys but they're brothers, the Ellis brothers. So are also well represented. But and then Layton High over the years has had some talent come into the NFL as well.
Some of these football players you have been following are actually playing in the upcoming big game, February 12th, the Super Bowl between Philadelphia and Kansas City, both as players and coaches. So, we'll talk about them in just a few minutes, but there's a slew of other athletes with Utah connections spread out across the NFL. And you've been telling us about some of your favorites. And what have we left out?
I think we've covered most of the guys. One of the Cody Barton for your Seahawks fans. So you mentioned Brighton High School. He's a University of Utah linebacker and a Brighton High School guy. Really had a strong season this year, and I think he's going forward a guy that can make a lot of noise there. And then I think that covers most of the main guys that we covered this season.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your background. You've worked for years as the newspaper guy in Ogden at the Standard Examiner. You've covered everything from breaking news to crime and politics, and you're doing that with Gephardt Daily now. But you really do have a knack for this sports reporting that I've been reading. I am not an avid sports fan. I'm a guy who has a favorite team like many other people, but I read your stuff and I really like your stuff. You have a passion. Otherwise, your words get me from paragraph to paragraph. I can't stop reading. What is that sports? How'd that get to be your niche?
I appreciate that. So sports writing, the reason I got into journalism was to be a sports writer. From the time I was a kid, I just really, I love sports. My dad, introduced me to sports at a young age, was a big sports fan. I just kind of loved it, watching, participating, following
all
sports, and really enjoyed it. Yeah, and
soccer, all of them. Yeah,
all of it. And then writing as well. It was always one of the things I really enjoyed. And so I sports writer was kind of my dream job. That's what I was going to do. And it was pretty exciting that out of college at Weber State, I started on the copy desk at the Standard Examiner. But within a couple of years, I was writing sports and had that job. And I did that for about 7 or 8 years, and then somewhere along the way, I kind of got promoted out of my dream, I guess, or my love and got moved to the news side of things. And I had an interest there. I wanted to grow with that too. I wanted to cover local governments and local news and kind of expand. And so I really
you keep your elbow in sports, as a Weber State guy, a Wildcat, and you see any Wildcats clawing their way into the ranks of the NFL anytime soon?
I sure hope so.
Ah,
They've had a great program over the years. Again, they do have some guys there. I don't know that there are pro prospects on the current roster with Weber State, and it is a time of change there right now with losing their coach. But again, it's a school that does produce a lot of talent.
yeah, shooting the breeze now. Yeah. With reporter and accomplished sports writer Jared Page, accomplished in more than just sports, but the passion is there. You can find his stuff on GephardtDaily.com. And when we come back, the Utah grown players and coaches we'll be watching during the big game.
You didn't plan on a disaster, but you have a choice on who restores it. Choose the best. Tell your insurance provider you choose UDK.
Welcome back to the podcast. We're talking football with Gephardt Daily reporter and sports writer Jared Page. He's been all over the place long before he came to Gephardt Daily writing about sports. So your picks for the big game.
My picks for the big game. All right. Well, I think I'm hoping for a good game. A lot of times we get these Super Bowls, build up the hype, and they don't live up to it. But I'm hoping for a good game. So I'm going with a very kind of a Utah-centric score of 34-31, and fans of Utah and BYU basketball will football will kind of recall that score. And that's kind of, because there are going to be some representatives from both those programs are going to be well represented in the game, with led by Andy Reid, who started his coaching career at BYU under the Lavelle Edwards, and kind of is that part of that Lavelle Edwards coaching tree. He has a couple of Utah-based assistants on his staff. And although there won't be any Chiefs on the field, they do have 3 guys on their practice squad. But on the field, the Eagles on the other side have former receiver return specialist Britton Covey. He was also a Timpview High School guy. Timpview is also a school we should mention, Corner Canyon as well, of those high school programs who have produced pro players. But Britton Covey played at the U and also Timpview High. And then linebacker Christian Ellis with Judge Memorial will also be on the field this Sunday. So I'm going 34-31 for the Chiefs.
Really? Are you a gambling man?
Not anymore. I used to play fantasy football in the day, but
you can't. Yeah. It's hard to. There's no such thing as a sure thing.
Yeah,
I think that's the way it goes. All right, we're talking football with Jared Page. He's a writer and sports writer for Gephardt Daily. We shall be right back.
Thanks.
Bankers and flashes. Oh, Nigel, let's challenge this party. No, he left the rest line.
Take it outside, boys.
Johnson's down the right side. He crosses into a corner and shoots. Oh, no! Oh, brilliant.
You didn't plan on a disaster, but you have a choice on who restores it. Choose the best. Tell your insurance provider you choose UDK.
Mom said take it outside.
Welcome back to the podcast, and we're talking with football with Gephardt Daily reporter and sports writer Jared Page. Okay, what do you think of the teams that are playing in the Super Bowl? It's not exactly a coast to coast contest. It's Philadelphia and Kansas City. I don't think that matters, does it?
No, and there are a lot of good storylines in this. We mentioned Andy Reid with the local ties, but also Andy Reid spent the first half of his NFL coaching career for Philadelphia, so he's playing his former team, and it's an interesting story. You've got the first pair of brothers facing off in the Super Bowl with Travis and Kelsey, and the Kelsey brothers on both sides, and then. And I think both these teams, these are the top seeded teams. These are the teams that were really the best all season, and they were able to get to the big game, which doesn't always happen. They both have explosive offenses and defenses that can step up. And so it really seems like on paper, we should have a good football game.
I thought Mahomes was a god. And then all of a sudden he started, you did too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And then
he-
all of a sudden, what happened? I mean, is it just his ankle? Because it seemed even before his ankle went south, and hopefully it'll be,
Yeah.
back to normal by the time he takes the field for Kansas City. But is it just his ankle that is causing him to be a little, a couple of interceptions? And I mean, with
Yeah.
1 minute to go, I remember in the Buffalo game a year ago, with a minute to go, those two guys were just battling it out and they couldn't miss. A minute to go, and it was like, what, 2 touchdowns in a minute or something on
Yeah.
each side?
Yeah, and Mahomes has had a few games like that this year where it's just inexplicably make some really bad decisions that you kind of thought he's gotten past because he is such a wizard with the football.
Yeah.
I mean, he does a lot of amazing things out there, and I think you mentioned his ankle. If he is healthy, I still think he's going to be the best player on the field, and that's why I think Kansas City will win. But you're right. I think it does depend on his health because he has had some shaky moments here.
He's not the youngest quarterback, is he? He's 27, I think, isn't he?
No,
younger?
he's not. No, and I think Jalen Hurts would be younger. The Philadelphia quarterback would be younger. But yeah, he's still you look at talking about young quarterbacks, and most of these you've got Brock Purdy in San Francisco who got there, and he's a young guy, and Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot. It's kind of that's been one of the fun, interesting things about the NFL this season is how these younger level tier of quarterbacks is kind of emerging as the top level of quarterbacks as these young guys.
They were gonna. You know who Joe Banner is?
Joe Banner.
Joe Banner. He's the only guy. The only guy that I can say that I know a celebrity. Joe Banner was the general manager of the Eagles for about 12 years, and he brought on Andy Reid.
Oh, okay.
In the first place, yeah. And now Andy Reid, has gone over to Kansas City, and Joe has left the Eagles. And I don't know. It's just so there are those that think he. And I'm among them who thinks that he has an awful lot to do with both sides of this upcoming Super Bowl.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's interesting.
Well, he did so much recruiting for both sides, and again, he brought on Andy Reid, and who didn't have a whole lot of. I mean, he was at BYU and whatever. Anyway, that's just a little thought of mine. So
that's fun. I like it. All
right. Jared Page, thanks for dropping by. We will do this again real soon. Now that I know I have somebody on the team, I've known her for a long time, somebody on the team who has such a passion for sports, and you have a lot to teach me. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it. Happy to join you anytime. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Jared. That is it for this edition of the Bill Gephardt Show podcast. And for the latest and local breaking news coverage, you know where to go, 24/7, GephardtDaily.com. I'll see you next time.